Good morning and welcome to the Daily Tanya. Today is Thursday, the 6th day of Cheshvan. We continue chapter 26, letter 26 in Agert, Hakodesh. In this letter, today's lesson, the Alter Rebbe talks about a few interesting facts, what is going to be when Mashiach will come. And of course, we're all waiting for Mashiach. We're waiting for peace in the world. People should be healthy. And a world of tranquility. But the Maimonides tells us that L'nisavu Chachamim, L'imoisa Mashiach, that our sages desired the days of Mashiach, not just to be able to sit back and relax and enjoy it. They desired the days of Mashiach because they wanted to be able to fulfill the Torah, to study the Torah in a way to be filled with wisdom and connect to Hashem. So the laws of the Torah is going to be very important to know in the time of Mashiach. In fact, in the time of Mashiach, there's going to be a necessity to study even more laws that do not apply today. In the same time, we will have the ability to do it in a peaceful way, in a way of no wars and health issues will be not a problem, will not be a problem at all, and so on and so forth. So the Alter Rebbe writes this here in context with the clarifying a statement in the Zohar. And the statement in the Zohar seems to apply that when in the time of Mashiach, we will study only the mystical part of the Torah, only the spiritual, mystical parts. And that is called the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. While the other part of the Torah that deals with what is kosher, what is not, what is pure, or what is not pure, this he calls it the Eitz Adas Toiv, the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and then we will not need to study that. Only the Erev Rav, only those who are not connected with the tree of life will need to study this part of Torah. That's what it sounds like for those who misunderstand the Zohar. And again, as we said yesterday, this is another indication that when you study Kabbalah, you study the Zohar, you have to do it with Hasidus to be able to understand properly and not misunderstand what the Zohar says. So yesterday, we asked some questions on the statement, the way it is misunderstood. And we asked, what does it mean that back in those days, that there is, in the time of the Zohar, when the Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there was so many sages that studied the Torah, which is the revealed part of the Torah. The Zohar and the Kabbalah was very hidden then. Only very few people knew it. And do you want to say that this is not the tree of life? They're not connected with the tree of life. When the revealed part of the Torah is not is not referred to as tree of life, of course it is. And other questions we asked yesterday. And today, the Alter Rebbe goes on to ask further questions. What we said that in the time of Mashiach, we will only study the Eitz HaChaim, that the Kabbalah, that the mystical part of the Torah. What about the revealed part of the Torah? There's so many laws that we're going to need to know in the coming of Mashiach. For example, the laws of offering the sacrifices. When Mashiach comes, we will go back to bring an offering. Now, when you offer a sacrifice, you have to know there's so many intricate laws of how to slaughter the animal. There is going to be more laws also of Tuma and Tara. There's going to be some impurities. For example, when a person passes away. So when Mashiach comes, when people pass away, so it says a child will die at 100 years old. In other words, it will be longevity. So when a person passes away at 100, it is considered like a child. However, there is going to be death. We're not talking now about the era of the resurrection of the dead. Then death will be eliminated, will be only life, eternal life. But at least in the first stage, there will be longevity, but there will be death. And when there is death, there are laws of impurity. Now, today's day and age, who needs to know about the laws of impurity of a dead person? A person like me, a Cohen. A Cohen needs to know he cannot go to a cemetery, he cannot go to a funeral home, and so on. He has to stay away. But in the time of Mashiach, everybody will need to know this. Because in order to be able to go into the Beis HaMikdash, to the Holy Temple, you will need to be pure. And the laws of impurities are so intricate that the food has to be pure, the vessels, what makes a vessel pure, impure, and so on and so forth. So many laws that is important and is necessary to know. So how could you say that in the time of Mashiach, there will not be a necessity to learn these laws? So certainly there is a misunderstanding there, and there's a few more questions Alter Rebbe asks, and we'll talk about interesting concept with giving birth and so on in the time of Mashiach. And so let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says. Says the Alter Rebbe, there is yet further cause to be exceedingly amazed at how those who lack understanding comprehend this question from the Raya Mehemna. This quotation, what we said, that quotation from the Zohar, from the Raya Mehemna, there are further questions. What are the questions? So as we said before, how could you say that in the time of Mashiach I'm not going to need to know the revealed part of the Torah? He calls it the tree of good and bad. How is it possible that in the days of Mashiach people will not need to know the laws of ritual prohibitions and permission and of impurity? For how will they slaughter the sacrifices? And not only the sacrifices. What about if you want to have a barbecue in your backyard when Mashiach comes? You will have to slaughter it and know how. The laws of slaughtering. V'gam chulin. And likewise, animal for common use. So how would you do that if you wouldn't know the laws? If they will not know the laws of drasa, chalada, and shehiyah. Those are some of the details that you need to know when you slaughter the animal. Drasa means you cannot cut the shechita, the slaughtering. You cannot pressure it down. You have to cut it in a very smooth way. Chalada means when you slaughter, you cannot go under the skin. You have to do it on the outside. Shehiyah means when you slaughter, has to be in one shot. You cannot pause in the middle, and so on. Any of which disqualifies the slaughtering. And likewise, the laws rendering a defective knife. The knife has to be very, very smooth. It takes hours and hours and hours to train how to have a proper knife that does not have any nicks, a very, very smooth knife to be able to slaughter the animal properly. So the Alter Rebbe goes on and is asking sarcastically, will a person naturally be born a sheichet, knowing how to slaughter properly? Those are things you have to learn. Will there ever be born a man who by his very nature will invariably slaughter without shehiyah and drasa? Will the knife also remain perfect and unblemished forever? So there's laws that you need to learn, even when Mashiach comes. There are also many more laws relating to sacrificial offerings and so on, such as those regarding fat. Not all fat there is permissible. Certain fat in animal we're not allowed to eat. You got to know which one is it. The blood and other prohibitions. You're not allowed to drink the blood. The meat has to be taken. You have to take out the blood from the meat before you eat it, and so on. In addition, another example says the Alter Rebbe, "V'gam tumas." Sorry about that. V'gam tumas meis yitzrichim leida. People will also need to know the laws regarding the impurity imparted by a corpse. As it is written, a young man will die at the age of 100. So the age of 100 will be considered young, but people will still die. As I said before in the beginning, the first stage of Mashiach. In addition, also there will be the laws of what the woman has to do after she gives birth. There's some kind of impurity there. That and people, says the Alter Rebbe here, there will be a woman then, when the time of Mashiach, they will give birth every single day. Now, don't get scared. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be no labor pain at all. There will be no issues of raising children. Everyone will be amazing. You will have plenty of help. As our sages tell us, there will be so many. The people will want to come and help the Jewish people to help them serve Hashem and so on. So that is only going to be a blessing. I know it sounds scary to give birth every day, but there will be a blessing. It's going to be a different mindset. But nevertheless, when you give birth, there is the impurity, the laws of impurity that you need to know about. It will be further necessary to know the laws governing the impurity of a woman who has given birth, as it is written, a pregnant woman and one who gives birth together will be among those restored to the Holy Land at the time of the redemption through Mashiach. If a woman will give birth every day, this successive birth resulting from one marital union. That's also an interesting fact. It's not going to be giving birth every time from a different marital union. It will be because there is a period once she gives birth, the woman cannot be with her husband for a week or 2 weeks, depending on a boy and a girl. But so it means that one marital union will give birth more than one child. And not just twins or triplets, but it will be in different days will give birth from the same marital union. So again, those are things that will happen when Mashiach comes. Nevertheless, the laws with respect to the restrictions resulting from her impurity will not change. So we'll need to learn those laws. And says the Alter Rebbe, there is no need to dwell on something so obvious as the fact that these laws will still apply in the time of Mashiach, so that then too it will be necessary to know the laws of Isur and Eter, what is forbidden, what is permitted, and purity and impurity. When the entire Talmud and the Midrashim make known the reverse of the misleading impression formed by a superficial reading of our opening quotation from the Rayim. So it says in the Talmud, it says the Porech Hilchos LeMashiach. For example, the question is asked, a law for the times of Mashiach. In other words, the Talmud talks about laws, certain laws, and talks, when Mashiach will come, you'll have to know these laws. And the Talmud asks, why tell me now about the laws about the coming of Mashiach? So in any rate, we understand that in the time of Mashiach, there will be laws that we'll need to know. In addition, there's another statement. It says, likewise, we find that Elijah will come to clarify all doubts. And this passage, Elijah will expound in the future and so on. So then certain laws, sometimes in the Talmud, we find no answer to it. And the Talmud tells us that Mashiach will come, Elijah will come, which is part of the process of the coming of Mashiach. Then he will clarify those questions. So again, that is telling us that we will need to know those laws. So those are some of the questions, again, that the Alter Rebbe asks. And this statement of the Zohar, the way it is misunderstood by some people. In addition, Alter Rebbe goes on and says about another part of this quotation from the Zohar. There it says that in the time of exile, when the sages are sustained by the Amioras, by the illiterate people, by those people who are not on the level of the sages, then they eat from them, from the impure, from the pure. The impure, that's why they need to learn the laws of the pure and impure. But later on, the sages will not be sustained by the Amiyah Aretz, by the illiterate people. They will be self-sustained, and the other people will be fed by the sages. Then they will not need to know those laws. That's what it sounds like. So again, the Alter Rebbe is asking a question: Is that the first time that we find that the sages were self-sustained? That's not true. In the time of the Second Temple, there were many sages who were self-sustained. They had fields, they had all good things. They were not dependent on the other people. And yet, they were busy studying all of these laws of pure and impure. So that's the next thing he's asking. Also not understandable is the statement in the Raya Mehemna, in the Zohar, that the Torah scholars will not be sustained by illiterate people and so on. Nor by the mixed multitudes who eat that which is ritually unfit, impure, and prohibited, heaven forfend. Says the Alter Rebbe, there was precedent. In the time of the Second Temple, the sages were independent. Even during the time of the Second Temple, they were not supported by the illiterate people who ate that which is ritually unfit and prohibited, heaven forfend. For the Torah scholars had fields and vineyards of their own, just like the illiterate people. Nevertheless, they engaged in the Torah study, the study of the laws of Isser and Heter, what is forbidden and permissible, or the impurity and purity. For example, all the pairs of leading sages who lived at the time of the Second Temple, and they raised disciples in the legal aspect of the Torah in the thousands and tens of thousands. While the study of the esoteric of the law of the Torah took place in secret and so on. So we just see that the fact that the Torah scholars, need not be sustained by the illiterate. But the illiterate is in no way a cause for the not studying, God forbid, the laws of Isser and Heter and purity and impurity. So again, these are the questions that the Alter Rebbe raised, and those who misunderstood the Zohar. And Bezrat Hashem, in tomorrow's lesson, the Alter Rebbe will begin to explain the Zohar. So we'll see Bezrat Hashem tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. All the best.